tooling.
And some of the new threats or incidents that may have resulted because of the current pandemic, and maybe those are that, like you said, a lot of your customers are seeing more, potentially phishing emails and things like that. You probably make, I'm guessing, everyone aware of that, or everyone was on the lookout that, things are changing a little bit. Let's be extra hyper vigilant.
Oh yeah. I mean, we clearly communicate internally about this. We're very transparent internally about the attacks that we're seeing. It's not as if everything's a secret and the security team doesn't tell employees that, oh, this person had a phishing attempt, right? Like when we hear about things and they're more, and we notice them and there's things to communicate with the rest of the company, we're sure to do so. Because we know that, one, everybody reads those kind of messages. They're very, very proactive in reading and responding and asking questions about them because it's from past experience. And two, if we see it with one person and we see this type of thing happening once, it's going to happen again. We see the same types of things over and over again. And then we build controls around being able to, stop them before they even come into the face of our end users. But it's a cat and mouse game. There's always going to be a new method. There's always going to be a new way of trying to get in front of people to try to do things. And so we need to be aware of them. And then as soon as we discover something, and even if we learn about it from like other exchange partners, and so a lot of the exchanges, the security teams at the exchanges do talk to each other. And so we say, hey, we've seen this type of attack. You guys might see it next. Oh yeah, we're seeing it as well. Here's the IOCs. And so we pass things around as well. And so sometimes we hear stuff from like another exchange that we're not seeing it at all. We're not seeing this at all. And then we add some of those IOCs into our systems. And sure enough, like 2.5 weeks later, we start seeing things, attempt to come through, right? But we already stopped them.
Is it a situation, because I'm guessing hackers, the bad guys probably were on some of the early adopters of digital currency. So I would imagine as a result, maybe they look at these exchanges as a prize for them versus a traditional brick and mortar bank or something.
No, I mean, I guess I don't know if I would say that. I would say that my experience has shown that there are criminal groups that specialize in stealing different things, right? Right. There are criminal groups that specialize in robbing electronic stores, right? Everybody knows those exist, right? That's how like half the stolen stuff ends up on eBay, right? Obviously, someone steals them someplace. They steal truckloads of stuff that's heading to Best Buy, and it shows up on eBay, right? So there are criminal groups. There are criminal groups that specialize in hacking point-of-sale systems at hotels, and they steal credit card information and they sell it on the dark web, right? But there are also then groups who steal things like identities, right? And they package those up, and then they sell them to people that want to create fake bank accounts or fake, exchange accounts and things like that. And then you have a whole other class of criminals that are just going to try to target end users, right? I would say, if I'm stealing cryptocurrency, it's much easier. Like the barrier to entry is much less for me as a hacker, as a criminal, and not hacker in like I sort of use the word hacker in typically more in the good sense, but I would say as a criminal, someone who's going after, it's much easier to go after individuals than it would be to go after like an entire exchange. Right. Like that, if I want to really steal a bunch of cryptocurrency, I'm going to figure out who people are that have accounts at various places, and I'm going to try to social engineer them. And that's what's going to happen.
And that's where your duty comes in to help keep your customer base informed.
Yeah.
I know I only have a couple of minutes with you. I want to ask quickly, final question. You're such a good commenter on the industry. How do you foresee what's coming down the road? How will COVID-19 affect security in general?
Yeah, I mean, I certainly think that a lot of IT departments, IT security departments are probably struggling with the fact that they have employees now working out of houses more than offices, and they don't have a really good handle on what's the security like of those home networks. So I think there's probably some ideas around how do you best do that? How do you best understand what your employee's home network looks like? because it could be your employees working on a network with their teenage kids who are downloading, all sorts of things, video games and, laced with malware. And now you have attackers on this home network the attackers may not know who your employee is, but maybe there's a way that they can actually, figure that out. Look at the traffic that's coming out of your employee's workstation. Maybe your employee hasn't patched their workstation in a while, or there's some like local, remote administration piece on there. And now their employees are now going to get hacked or compromised while they're outside the perimeter of those offices. And so doing more, there's probably more device management that needs to be deployed. There's probably more endpoint technology. If people were taking the stance that like, we don't need to do those types of things because they're in the four walls of our company and they're inside our network, well, that's very different now, because your company network is now your employee's home, which can be very scary.
Yeah, it's so interesting to think how it's going to evolve and what additional security might result from it. All right, Nick, final question. Should I be buying Bitcoin?
Sure. Always be buying Bitcoin. Yeah. And hold on to it.
You're always a big Bitcoin guy, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
Okay. So hopefully you made out well. All right, Nick Rococo, CISO of cryptocurrency exchange Kraken. Thank you for entering SOC Quarantine Diaries with us, and I wish you the best of luck.
Yeah, thanks for having me. We'll talk soon.
Hi, I'm Dan Kaplan, and welcome to SOC Quarantine Diaries, a new virtual video series presented by Simplify, where we take candid and intimate looks into the lives of security operations professionals as they deal with the current situation. From how they've helped to stand up a remote workforce to what happens to security operations when we're let out of lockdown, the conversations are truly revealing, and I hope you enjoy.
All right. Let's get started. Nick Prococo, CISO at Kraken, which is a global cryptocurrency firm, exchange rather. Thank you for joining us on SOC Quarantine Diaries, Nick.
Yeah. Hey, Dan. Thanks for bringing me on.
Yeah, and Nick and I, our relationship goes back. I actually interviewed with Nick prior to me starting at Trustwave, and then because Nick, you stood up Trustwave Spider Labs in its infancy and saw that through for a number of years, right?
Yeah, for almost 11 years. So I started it. It was an idea I had back in, I think 2004, and then I stayed there until it was 2004. It stayed there for about 11 years. Yeah, so it was like it was a couple of years after I started at Trustwave, had the idea for Spider Labs, basically formed that, and then grew that business from basically myself to a large number of people globally. I think it was like 130, 140 people globally when I left. And we had a few thousand clients, enterprise clients globally that we did work for. So yeah, it was a fun ride.
Yeah, and you have quite the resume. I'm sure a lot of people in the community are familiar with you. You planted your roots as a pen tester, and that probably is what led you to get into the research and the Spider Lab stuff. And then since then, you've moved on to, and we'll talk about your current role, but you've done stuff. You launched a conference in the Chicago area, ThoughtCon, right?
Yep. Yeah.
You were the Cavalry Isn't Coming was a big presentations you gave at various shows, right? Around the importance of working with device manufacturers and such. So you've done a lot of stuff outside of your main job.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah. I mean, I think what I always enjoyed doing, it's interesting. Like security has been my career for many, many years, right? 23 years or so. And I think the other big benefit to that is, to my world, is that security is also my hobby, or it has been for a really long time. So it's very rare that you have someone your career is in X, but then you really enjoy doing that as well. You also enjoy doing X sort of in your free time. So that sort of bled into, right, doing security as a day job, starting a conference, right, running ThoughtCon for the last 11 years as well. And then also doing things like security research and speaking at places like DEF CON. I'm also on the DEF CON I'm a DEF CON goon that works on the there at DEF CON every year. So I'm a DEF CON knock goon.
Yeah.
And I run contests at DEF CON. So I do a lot of stuff for the community, as well as have a day job where, in the last couple of years, that's been the chief security officer at Kraken.
At Kraken. Yeah, and I'm so interested in talking about what that job entails. You mentioned DEF CON, of course. This is the first year it's actually been postponed or canceled because of the current COVID situation. The genesis of these videos that we're doing came from the fact that a lot of folks in the security space have had to kind of uproot themselves from their normal routines, and they're in their homes practicing their job. So how are you doing with all the quarantining?
Yeah, I mean, I think, well, personally, just like everybody else, I think I've left my house 3 times in the past since like early March, right? Just like most other people. But as far as people who are practicing, proper quarantining and sort of isolation and things like that. But that being said, Kraken as a business has always been a remote business. And so when I joined, almost 2 years ago, I worked in my basement day one, right? And my team was always in other places around the world. And so, I'm responsible for security, IT, and DevOps at Kraken. And my team is literally around the entire planet. I have people sprinkled all over the planet in all time zones, which makes things very interesting. It's great from a coverage perspective, but it has challenges from a communication perspective, which is very different than where I was prior to Kraken, right? Prior to Kraken, I was also a chief security officer of a data analytics company, industrial AI company, essentially, called Uptake here in Chicago. And that was complete opposite. Kraken is globally distributed. We have employees all over the world, operates 24/7. Nothing ever sleeps, which is great from a productivity standpoint. I can see projects continue 24/7 around the world. And in that space, when I was at Uptake, it was very much, there's an office in Chicago. All the employees are in that office. We have physical, screens and other things to look at. We have war rooms. We can physically grab 2 people and pull them into a room and talk about something, where in the fully remote world, it's very different. You need to be more flexible. Your work-life balance is a little bit different. You need to be very careful about that, because a 24/7 operating company with people over the world means there is never anybody who's on my team that is not working. And so if something needs to get escalated, it gets escalated 24/7, 365.
Yeah, so this pandemic, which changed everything in a flash for a company like Kraken, what kind of changed from a security perspective? Would any new risks that came of it?
I mean, we've always had this baseline level of threats that have been hitting us, historically. Obviously, cryptocurrency exchange, there's a lot of criminal groups out there. There's a lot of people who would love to hack us, right? Who would love to get access to our people, would love to get access to our systems, our technology, and ultimately, the assets that we hold for our clients. So we always have this baseline. There's always people trying stuff. There's always, impersonation attacks going on social media of executives. We're always dealing with, people pretending to be clients and trying to do things. There's always this underlying noise that always is. And we've had to build and build custom tooling to be able to do lots of things there. So I won't go into all the detail, but there's a lot of work that goes into being able to defend against all of that in a proper way. Now, that being said, we have seen, just like I think lots of other people, I'd say when the job losses started happening, when everybody started being sort of quarantined and at home, I think the scammers, the folks who were doing the social engineering attacks, phishing attacks, other types of sort of remote type attack type things that involve people, actually started to increase. We started seeing more things coming through, via email. We started seeing more things coming through our support channels. We started seeing, like I said, more things on social media, scamming our clients, right? So if you think about it, it's not just us we're protecting, as a business, we're also protecting our clients. And we started seeing more things like phishing sites and fake emails being sent to, people that they found names on a mailing list, if there's a crypto mailing list out there that gets hacked into, there's an assumption that maybe they're cracking clients, right? We have a lot of clients globally. And so they just take a shot at that and email 1,000 people with stuff that looks like it's legitimately from us, and it's not. And then some people will report it to us. Some people may fall victim to it. Some people may, we may get wind of it and work with various hosting providers and various domain name registrars and other people in the community to basically say, hey, there's this attack happening. Can you help us shut this down? And what we found is, I think it almost seems like people, at those organizations also have a heightened level of awareness, because we also started to see the responsiveness when working with various parties where they would typically get back to us in a couple of days. Like, I think they're like on high alert as well, and they're noticing a lot of activity. So they've also had to hone their practices and their processes in order to respond to those types of alerts.
Yeah, and like you said, millions of customers of Kraken that need to be secured. Tell me about I've heard you say that the stakes are much higher when it comes to securing Kraken. I think when we think about your traditional financial institutions, we think of banks, but talk to me about a cryptocurrency exchange, some of the challenges that come along with securing that versus another organization.
Well, I think it all has to do with sort of the value and the prize that exists with the company that's the target, right? So if you draw some parallels here, if it's a small bank in a small town or a small credit union, as an attacker, you don't. There's going to be some limits of what you're going to be able to do, right? Like if I'm wearing sort of my like pen tester hat. Like if I get access, I target a credit union. If I target that, I may try to phish some employees. I may get access to a couple of workstations. I may try to get access to a banking system and then do like a wire transfer. But when that happens, sometimes people will notice that, right? There might be some flags that are put in place. People notice things. But then if the money happens to go to another bank, then the credit union notices that, they can call that other bank and they can say, hey, someone just sent $10,000 from one of our clients, our customers, and it went to this other bank here. You can call that other bank and they can freeze the funds and you can get the money back. And, they figure out how it happened. Because I personally have investigated some of those. When I was at Spider Labs, we used to investigate banks that got hacked into and money got moved around, right? And it was sort of, it's not super complicated to deal with from a response standpoint. Obviously there's the, how did it happen? Is there malware involved? What do they had access to? Why? And you sort of do the whole root cause analysis and you map out the entire attack chain. But the end result of that typically isn't this catastrophic thing for that client or even for that bank. That's very rare that it happens. It's very rare that you hear, a bank got hacked and now they're out of business and all their clients lost all of their money, right? Like that doesn't really happen in the banking world. But in the cryptocurrency exchange world, that certainly has happened, right? There certainly have been cryptocurrency exchanges that have been hacked, that have had all of their funds taken and no one ever got them back. And the clients were left hanging, basically hanging in the wind. And that exchange that themselves that got hacked no longer ceases to exist, right? Like they're done, right? The reason being is that if I hack into a cryptocurrency exchange and I send, and I was able to
take it away, Terry.
Okay, great. Hi, thank you. Yes, and it's my pleasure.
Hi, I'm Dan Kaplan, and welcome to SOC Quarantine Diaries, a new virtual video series presented by Simplify, where we take candid and intimate looks into the lives of security operations professionals as they deal with the current situation. From how they've helped to stand up a remote workforce to what happens to security operations when we're let out of lockdown, the conversations are truly revealing, and I hope you enjoy.
All right. Let's get started. Nick Prococo, CISO at Kraken, which